Hello everyone, I went to Bungie a couple of weeks ago where I was invited to check out some stuff from the final shape a little bit early. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the exotic armor from the event that I got to play with. We did a little preview of the teasers that Bungie put out a little while ago. This is going to be actual gameplay of them, which means that yes, any preview videos that I did, I lied. I was acting. I faked it. I knew the whole time. Pretty good, right? All right, anyway. Titans, you're up first. In the teaser, we saw Hazardous Propulsion, an exotic that gives you rockets on your class ability. It actually works like so. Weapon precision hits or final blows have a chance to load a kinetic Exodus rocket. The chance is pretty high. Class ability fires the rockets. Then, depending on how many rockets hit targets, you will get a damage boost to rocket damage for a short duration. I didn't get to test many variations, but hitting with all rockets gave me, I believe, a 35% boost in my rocket damage for the duration. The text description is a little weird on the buff. It'll say Enhanced Rockets X6. I thought initially this meant like, you know how Explosive Light has X6 and then it ticks down whenever you shoot a rocket, like X5, X4, etc. This doesn't, which tells me that X6 is the strength of the buff you receive because that's how many rockets were fired. I'm not 100% on that. Maybe somebody else who went to this event was able to get that exact data point. The main data point I was trying to hunt down was, is this even good? Are the rockets doing any damage at all? Let's find out. I'm stepping into an expert Nightfall, 15 levels under. I stack up my Exodus rockets to the max, I stun the overload, and I fire the rockets. And the damage is not too bad. You know, it's not one-shotting a champ at this level, but it's doing slightly more than half damage. I've comboed this with Dranger's Lash to provide a suspend on the target as well for a little more control, even though the target is already stunned. Where I see this faltering a bit more is outside of solo play, where you aren't able to charge up your rockets as often as you can by yourself. But that being said, you're probably going to try to use this in specific situations, either taking down one big dude or a lot of smaller ones. And that's not a constant occurrence in the game, so that gives it a little more viability. I used Abeyant Leap for the good part of a year, and all that did was suspend a couple more enemies. This is not exactly too far off from that, which is what leads me to believe it might get some use in a GM Nightfall setting or something like that, so we'll see. Now, with this boosting your rocket damage by 35%, this also has some room to shine in the raiding scene once we determine what stacks with what, and does this stack with this and all that. But 35% rocket damage for 10 seconds is quite a long time if it does end up stacking with a lot of other things. In PvP, it wasn't possible to kill someone with 6 rockets outright, so don't think you're gonna just go around insta-gibbing people with your wall. For me, it was a bit of a challenge to even get to 6 stacks and then also use the rockets in a way that I hit the target with every single rocket, and it won me the fight. I got it to happen a couple of times. That was about it. The other exotic, as if Banner Titans didn't have it good already, is a strand-based exotic called Wishful Ignorance. You get an additional Frenzied Blade charge. That's now 4 charges, and Frenzied Blade and Flechette Storm briefly increase their damage with each strike. And, I'm not even done, and pulses from Banner of War feed you melee energy based on the number of allies healed. Syntheseps got nerfed, Banner of War got nerfed, and now I'm starting to see why. Yes, this is now conspiracy theory Datto. No, those got nerfed because they were really good. But then, like, also this is now showing up. I really don't have a ton to say on this exotic because I think we all know how good Banner Titan is, even with its upcoming nerfs. And all this exotic does is just juice up Banner Titan and the good parts of it. Unfortunately, I didn't get exact damage values for Frenzied Blade as I played this in Patrol, and there were not many Patrol enemies that could survive 4 Frenzied Blade attacks or a huge batch of Storm attacks, but for what it's worth, my swings on this boss enemy go from the mid 20,000s to the mid 50,000s. I think that's incomplete data. I don't think that's the best representation of the numbers because my Flechette Storm example shows a much smaller increase in damage going from around 9,500 to 13,000 per hit, which feels a bit more in line with what I was expecting. The bump in melee energy isn't anything too crazy when you're just by yourself. Unfortunately, I didn't get to test any sort of group content, group healing, higher difficulty content with these gloves, but like, you know, we all know what's up. These gloves have a pretty high chance of being stapled to your hands if you are a Banner Titan. Warlocks, you're up next. Let's talk Mataiodoxia. Am I even close on that? Let's Google it.
Mataiodoxia.
Mataiodoxia. It's a Greek word, apparently, meaning vanity. All right. I probably butchered that really bad. I'm sorry. This is the Arcane Needle exotic where people were a little apprehensive because it seemed like you needed a lot of charges to get that suspend effect. So let's clarify that. 1 needle hitting an enemy will cause that enemy to provide a suspending detonation when killed. Landing multiple will immediately trigger that suspend detonation, and it will be even bigger. Killing suspended targets gives melee energy, and your arcane needles are effective versus barrier champion shields. It's also going to mark targets that you've hit with arcane needle so you can keep track of which targets you've hit. I thought that was very nice. So, a bit better than I originally was anticipating, and to reiterate, while this will be good for Strand purists, I think a big part of this exotic is to give suspend to prismatic warlocks, which they don't have access to otherwise. The melee energy from killing a suspended target is not also anything too crazy per kill, just like the Strand Titan gloves. It's your ability to rack up a lot of suspend kills that's going to make or break your experience with this exotic. Given how good Prismatic felt to me during gameplay, both in the Legend campaign and outside of it, I could see this getting some use if you build into it with your fragments. Strand on its own, Warlock already has good suspend potential, very good, but further increasing your potential, this never hurt anybody. Also, Prismatic has fragments that boost your ability to gain Transcendence energy, and one of them will boost your Light Transcendence when you kill targets that have a Stasis or Strand debuff. So there is some build crafting to be done. We talk a lot about Prismatic in a different video that I will link at the end of this one and in the description. Otherwise, not too many numbers or percentages to really discuss here, so we're going to move to the next thing. Speaker's Sight is a support exotic where your healing grenades spawn a healing turret, and healing allies sometimes spawns an orb of power. Didn't get to test that part. You'll get a total of 5 healing turret shots, at least when by yourself. Maybe it ramps up if there's more people around, which provide Cure and Restoration X2. That's not too bad. Another thing that I didn't get to test was whether or not you can use it like a regular healing grenade and still have the turret be around. Like normally you just Lonely Island the grenade and then you land on it or you run into it and it consumes the grenade. I didn't check to see if you could do that and still have the turret part going off. My guess would be yes, because otherwise any sort of accidental touching of the grenade just entirely defeats the purpose of the exotic. But the point of the exotic is to maybe throw the grenade somewhere else and just let it do its thing and then you not have to worry about it. So I'm not sure. I also don't know if I'm fully investing my exotic into a healing turret. Maybe there will be some situations where it is super helpful. I'm not sure. I remain skeptical for now. Hunters, we have your exotics. Let's look at Gifted Conviction first. This is the one in one of the previews. Your Uppercut Arc aspects, so the new one, Ascension, and Tempest Strike, throw bouncing explosives that jolt and damage, and jolting nearby enemies gives you damage resistance. I hopped into a Legend Onslaught to really give this thing a spin, and I was a bit underwhelmed upon my first impressions. The damage on those explosives is basically only there to apply jolt to targets, and you should think of this thing as more of an AoE jolt machine than anything else. The explosives feel like they didn't do a whole lot of anything, although this first wave is a bunch of servitors, which have a lot of health. Against dregs, it's a bit more noticeable. I could see a world where mass applying jolt is good, and you're just chaining damage everywhere, especially in a group setting, but just by myself, I'm not the most enticed by this option right now. I also didn't do any sort of double stacking of Tempest Strike and the new aspect though, which is where you could get some more potency out of this exotic. The new aspect also gives you amplified when you use it, and there are a couple of fragments in Prismatic that give you bonuses based on having a light element buff like amplified. So there is some synergy that is possible. Again, I'm going to have a bit more to say in another video about Prismatic, but just looking at this exotic purely in a vacuum, it did feel a bit underwhelming without a significant amount of build crafting put into it. Once we get the ability to do some build crafting, maybe it has a bit more to offer. Balance of Power is the final exotic based on Threaded Spectre. I didn't do too much theory crafting on this one simply because all it does is buff Threaded Spectre. Increased duration, durability, more threadlings when damaged. There's a PvP part built in too. While you're near the Spectre, you do not appear on the radar, so it's just going to be the Spectre on the radar, not both of you. Threaded Spectre is actually not the worst PvE option in the world, but considering the tools hunters have available to them right now, putting my entire exotic into this in PvE does not seem worth it. PvP, on the other hand, I know that we had that time period where Triple Strand Hunter, Threadling Spam was just kind of really wrecking the place. It's not around as much anymore. Do I see it making a comeback because of these boots? To be determined. Again, consult your local PvP expert on that. Maybe. Hopefully not, but maybe. That's your breakdown of exotic armor coming in the final shape. I also have a video on some exotic weapons that's live right now. If you want to go check that out, it is linked here and in the description. And I also have a third video that's going to be about everything else that I got to experience at Bungie with final shape. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you at the other video.